This episode is brought to you by Airbnb. Whether I'm heading out of town for work or for fun, I prefer to stay in an Airbnb instead of a hotel because an Airbnb can really make you feel like it's a home away from home. Some trips are just better in that kind of setting. Now, back to the podcast. I didn't fall asleep the other night watching the Hail Mary over and over and over again. Definitely didn't do that.
I take the blame. Forget about Eberflous.
The only concern of mine is that Todd Bowles' defense sucks.
Dak Prescott is basically a mall Santa.
Kirk is dressing up as someone who looks like he actually lives in Atlanta.
Everyone watching these games can see that you guys are not going to succeed in the playoffs against teams that are actually good.
It's just a ploy to get people talking about stupid things like love.
They have been telling me how much therapy would help, and I feel like I've finally taken a step forward.
From Wondery, I'm Annie Agar, and this is The Offensive Line. Welcome to The Offensive Line, you guys. We're here to make some picks, talk some shit, and hopefully make you some money. I'm Annie Agar, your host today, and here with our guest, Chad Millman, co-host of the Favorites podcast, and unfortunately, man, this is hard to say, a diehard Bears fan. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot to unpack with that, Chad. But first of all, to preface your gambling background, I just want to throw out there, this does not happen often, guys. But I did pick the Cleveland Browns. I took the Cleveland Browns money line last week. That might be the most insane bet I've ever made, and I did it out of pity for the guest that we had on last week. So don't take my betting advice as sound. Listen to Chad. But I do want to talk about your mental state, Chad. How are we doing this week?
Look, it's been a struggle. I definitely feel like I might have blacked out for a good 4 or 5 minutes. We do a show, The Favorites goes live 3 times a week, but on Sunday nights we do it at 7:30 after the last afternoon game, and we review quickly what happened and preview the early lines we like for the next week. That's not like trying to pimp the show. That's just sort of context for what I'm about to say, which is, as you and your producers have seen, we were live on air while the Bears both scored the game-winning touchdown, and I had them in a contest that we do. We were hopefully going to be doing great in the contest, and then saw the last play of the game. And in that 35-minute window that I was on air, not only did I potentially black out live on video, I had 69 text messages from my friends in a text chain that is an incessant Bears text chain in that window. People have still, honest to God, my phone is buzzing as we record this, with people still talking about it.
So basically, you jinxed them. That's what I'm hearing.
I think the correct term there is mushed. I mushed them.
Mushed them.
I destroyed them. It is all my fault. I take the blame. Forget about Eberflous and that those 13 yards Jayden Daniels got don't matter, even though every coach will tell you they do. Forget about Tyreek Stevenson and saying he was talking to Bears fans, not taunting Commanders fans, and then not blocking out the player he was supposed to mark. It was me. It was all me sitting here in Connecticut.
We all knew
accidentally saying the Bears had won with 23 seconds left in the game. All
right, Chad, before we get into the games, as a lot of you know on social media, my dad and brother were doing the Ironman World Championship here in Kona, Hawaii this past weekend. They put in so much training and did a great job. However, they didn't make the time cutoff on the bike. They went 94 miles on the bike out of 114, gave it their absolute best. The winds were brutal. And if you're carrying, my dad's carrying my brother on the back of the bike, it was super hard. But I'm so impressed with them. And on top of all that, we got this special message from someone that my brother looks up to a ton, which was such a surprise to give them a little added motivation. So take a look.
Hey, this is a very, very special message to 2 very special human beings. DJ here, also known as Dwayne Johnson, also known as The Rock. I'm so grateful that you're a fan of mine. Now I'm your biggest fan. Have an amazing Ironman. Can't wait to see the result. You are an inspiration to me and the world, and I can't wait to see the result. Okay, see you guys.
That was just the coolest thing. Oh,
that's
man.
Amazing.
Thank you.
How do you think you finally got it to him that he was able to get the video to you guys?
It was my mom is absolutely incredible woman. She is kind of like their manager, makes all these, she dealt with all the fundraising to get us out to Hawaii and all that stuff. And she had continuously reached out to her contact at Under Armour and said, hey, if there's, we know DJ's working on, he was filming Moana at the time. So she's like, I know he's super busy right now, but I mean, it would mean the world, and this huge race is coming up. And we didn't really hear back for a while. And then they contacted us the day, I think it was 2 days before the race, and sent the video, and couldn't believe it. I mean, we were just shocked. So it's all thanks to my mom. She just, it's proof that it doesn't hurt to ask, just ask. And it's crazy. It was so motivating for them. So that was pretty cool.
Well, it's an inspiring story. I've seen what you and your family have been doing. And the trips that your dad and your brother have taken.
Thank you.
It's beautiful and it's great.
Thank you.
And I love seeing the support that you guys get. So congrats on all that.
Thank you so much. It balances out the fact that he's a Lions fan. So we just gotta take our losses sometimes.
Everyone has to carry a burden.
Everyone has their flaws. That is so true, Chad. All right, before we get into games, we start off with a little segment called Too Offensive. It is stories that are too offensive to even discuss, so I give them a couple seconds of my time, and then we just throw them in the NFL trash bin of history to never be spoken about again. First one, Seattle, apparently, there was a play where Geno slipped. Apparently, Seattle was not prepared for rain, which is ridiculous, because how do you not prepare for the most normal climate you have all season? The second one is Anthony Richardson. I said this at the start of the show. Benched himself, guys. He said he was tired. And Chad, we probably have never heard that before in the history of the NFL. And lastly, Jameis Winston. I don't know if this is too offensive, but this is just hilarious. And I don't want to damage how funny it was. Like he brought up Eminem in his pregame speech, and it just kind of went in all different directions. It's like the Michael Scott thing where he's like, sometimes I just start talking and I don't know where I'm going. That's every speech Jameis Winston ever gives. Those are my two offensive topics. Let's get into an even more offensive topic, the Chicago Bears. Okay, question for you, Chad. Where does this Hail Mary rank in the most upsetting Bears moments of your Bears fan career?
Oh my God. I mean, there's so many disappointments. There is the Bears losing, I think 27-0 to the Niners at Soldier Field in an NFC Championship game. I was at that game. I think it was about 27 below. I was wearing garbage bags and the hand warmers and about 8 layers. That was truly devastating. The Bears in 1980, I'll age myself here, were playing the Eagles in the wild card, and Walter Payton had an 80-yard run that was called back that would have won them the game because Brian Bashnagel was holding. Obviously, there's the double doink also against the Eagles in a year which I feel, if it had not doinked, different career trajectory entirely from Mitchell Trubisky and Matt Nagy. So there's like so much heartache and so much disappointment to go around generationally from rooting for the Bears, that certainly this has introduced an entirely new world of fans to how earth-shattering it can be. And like, it's not just a Hail Mary. Look, it happens to everybody, right? And that's part of the game. Mm-hmm. But not many Hail Marys happen where the coach then goes to the press conference and in a very sort of backdoor way, subtly throws his players under the bus. And you really got to unpack it to want to see it. But I am not an Eberflous fan, so I do want to see it. He basically says, it doesn't matter that Jayden Daniels got that 13-yard pass before, because you're not defending against that, you're defending against the touchdown. And then says, all of our guys know what to do. You're supposed to box out. We practice this. Basically saying, I did everything I was supposed to do, but the players didn't do what they're supposed to do. I find that to be abhorrent. So
Eberflous. Oh man.
Eberflous.
And Shane Waldron.
So it's and look, Shane Waldron giving the ball
to your backup center. What
a backup
center doing?
You got a chance. Like, you haven't been in yet. You've barely sniffed the end zone the entire game.
Yeah.
You got a shot here to win the game. It changes the trajectory of everything for the rest of the game. And your plan, your genius plan, give the ball to a guy who never handles the ball. When you've got DeAndre Swift, you've got a team back there
that
can actually carry the ball now.
He's been watching too much Ben Johnson. getting cute with the play calls.
Everybody wants to be Ben Johnson. It was so gut wrenching. It was terrible.
Well, here's the thing, Chad. You could bounce back. The Bears play the Cardinals next week, and Arizona
all
is
in.
plus one.
I'm all in, Annie.
That's
100%. Give me the Bears.
Pretty. I feel like that line is pretty weird because I don't think the Cardinals are. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't think they're as good as we think they are. And Chicago, Chicago. Caleb was like potentially rookie of the year, one of the best rookie quarterbacks until this game, maybe. And he was trending upward.
He was on an upward swing. This game was definitely a setback. I mean, I think part of the problem is the Bears, not to get too into the weeds, they lost their left tackle. And so what had been sort of Caleb not playing that great turned into Caleb playing terribly. But he did find ways to sort of show his athleticism and make the right plays at the end of that game. What's interesting is you could watch in real time the line on that Bears-Cardinals game changing as the Bears-Commanders game changed. So the Bears had moved from 1-point favorites to 1-point dogs to 1-point favorites to 1-point dogs to one back and forth as sort of their chances in that game changed. And then as soon as the game ended, obviously they were 1-point dogs again. It's a tricky game. Like I want to bet the Bears. I think they are probably the better team. I think they have a better defense. It's the Cardinals. All of a sudden they've won 2 in a row. And do we truly believe like this is a team that can go on a streak? This is the team that can, take control of the NFC West. I don't know. Their defense is pretty trash. So it makes for an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. The Cardinals, it might not be this year, but they have a good product. I mean, they've got, like I said, MHA and Kyler. It's hard to defend a runner like that. But before we make our picks for this game, Chad, I would like to take this moment. There are very few and far between times where I feel bad for the Chicago Bears fans. This past Sunday was potentially one of them for maybe like 5 seconds. But I remembered also as a Packers fan, we are masters of the Hail Mary. So then I didn't feel bad again. But I did take an oath last week to be a non-certified, unofficial therapist for Jets fans. I don't know if you guys saw the clip. So I figured, while we're in that space, I am in Hawaii. It's a very peaceful place. Chad, we are going to take this safe journey together, okay? It is time for the meeting of the Hail Mary Victims Support Group. Chad, I want you to take this very seriously, okay? This is a time for self-reflection. So let's take a deep breath, ground ourselves, okay? May take your shoes off if you need to. Just don't show it to the camera. This is a safe place. Jayden Daniels cannot hurt you here, okay? When you picture a Hail Mary, do you picture your nemesis Aaron Rodgers or your previous opponent Jayden Daniels or maybe your next opponent Kyler Murray?
I picture all three doing it again and again to torture the Bears for generations to come.
That's very unhealthy, but good to know. Good to know. What emotion do you feel when you think of Tyreek Stevenson?
I feel frustration. I feel disappointment. I feel anger. I feel, why are you being so silly? I want to find sympathy and empathy for the moments I've made mistakes. And I want to find the same kind of sort of understanding that my 18-year-old son, when he told me Tyreek Stevenson apologized and I said, what else is he going to do? And he said, I think that was really big of him. I wanted to find that kind of empathy.
That is very big of you. That is, because that's hard to do, especially when someone is that stupid. Where do you feel the frustration in your body?
It's a very specific place. I feel it like right underneath my rib cage. It's not in my stomach and it's not in my heart. It's like in sort of a gastrointestinal place that could turn into heartburn or just like a permanent knot.
It's good to know. I suggest antacids for that. How will you channel your emotions to impact the result you want, Chad?
I will 100% bet on the Chicago Bears to rally this weekend against the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay, betting is not the answer, folks. Psychology 101. Don't do something that will make you feel worse. Sport group over. Sport group over. That was good. That was good. That was really
good.
Did
I fail?
No,
I fail
that's great.
If I go back to those bad habits?
The question is, Chad, do you feel rejuvenated? Then we've succeeded. Do you feel therapeutically a release?
I do feel a little bit. You know what? For years, my mom, who's a therapist, my wife, my friends, they have been telling me how much therapy would help. And I feel like I've finally taken a step forward.
Hey, the first step is admitting it. This is great. This is really great. Last week, Stugat said that he used marijuana. So we're moving up in the world. We're going from one addiction to another.
Coming together.
All right, guys. Let's make a pick on this game. I think Chad already made his. I got to go with Arizona on this one, I think. I'm going to take Arizona money line. That's,
You're not going to be alone. A lot of bettors will tell you they're going to either ignore this game because they really want to see how the Bears react. They will tell you the Bears are, from a matchup perspective, the right side, but they either want to ignore the game or they're going to take the Cardinals on the money line because they just don't have faith the Bears can get back to a healthy place. Maybe they need your therapy group.
Yeah, maybe they do. All right, guys, one more Bears thing because I think we're forgetting about someone in this whole Hail Mary mess. Please enjoy. And now it's time for Real Men of Football Genius. Real Men of Football Genius. Every week, I'll pick someone who has done something so stupid. This is probably going to be about the Chicago Bears. They can only be real men of football genius. Today, we salute you, guy who tried to stop the Commanders' Hail Mary. Not you, Tyreek Stevenson, the fan who pointed at the play to get your attention. The ball is in the air now. Not only did you fly all the way from Chicago to sit in your Section 105 row 1 seats, but you did it all to watch Shane Waldron run a fullback dive with his backup center. What was he thinking? And if that's not enough, you do what the players get paid millions to not do, apparently, which is pay attention to their own football game. So here's to you, guy who tried to stop the Commanders' Hail Mary. Go into the fridge and crack open a cold one. I'm glad someone was paying attention because it definitely wasn't your cornerback or your offensive coordinator or your head coach or your defensive coordinator or Keenan Allen or your O-line.
Kudos to you who never found the guy who flew from Chicago to point out to Tyreek Stevenson that the play was happening. It also might prove Tyreek Stevenson's point that he was actually just having a nice chat with fans.
That's true.
Reveling in the joy of a Chicago Bears victory.
That is
snatched from the jaws of defeat.
I don't know if that makes it better, though. He still was talking to fans, Chad.
Genius.
I think it would be better that he's not chirping because then we're going like Nick Sirianni on him. But
just fantastic. Well done.
As if being a Bears fan wasn't scary enough, it is Halloween. So next up, we are talking some costumes or contenders. When my dad and brother, who you've seen me post a lot about before, did a race in Germany, it was my family's first time being out of the country, and let me tell you, it was a trip. We felt a little lost. There were so many moving pieces, and we'd never been there before. But the Airbnb we found in the countryside, away from the city and the airport and the noise, was incredibly peaceful. We had this amazing family dinner one night. Our aunt and uncle came over from their hotel just to spend time at our Airbnb. That's how nice it was. And even with all the equipment we had to bring over for my dad and brother, we never felt cramped. Airbnb is such a great way to host your entire family. There's dedicated spaces to hang out. You can share a meal and make great memories. It's so much better than having to meet in a hotel lobby or make a reservation. And that is why I love Airbnb. All right, Chad, we're going to give you a break. No more Bears talk. We are moving on to the other teams in the NFL. Halloween is right around the corner, which means everyone is dressing up in costumes. It is time for contender or costume. Chad, this is something we're going to do to weed out the good teams from the bad kind of thing. Some NFL teams this year have decided to dress up as Super Bowl hopefuls, though. Some are not. Our job is to figure out the real contenders and who is just in a costume. So are you ready? This is going to be a quick run through, 2 minutes on the clock. Are the Commanders contenders or in a costume? They're 6-2, but took a miracle Hail Mary to beat the Chicago Bears.
Oh, they're totally contenders. At this point, you're halfway through the season. Their defense is getting better. Jayden Daniels, whether it's a Hail Mary or not, he still has been playing incredibly well. Had that stretch where he had the greatest completion percentage of any quarterback in NFL history. Very good head coach. I am full-on believer that this is a contending team, especially, by the way, in an NFC where the Eagles still haven't found their footing.
Yep.
The Niners have fallen behind in the NFC West. Like the only real team that everyone says is performing up to expectations right now is the Lions. So yes,
Okay.
Commanders are contenders.
Speaking of NFC North, are the Vikings contenders or in a costume? They're 5-2 coming off a loss to the Rams, and Darnold is showing cracks.
Vikings are in a costume, I'm sorry to say. I think that's a team where if they are scripted, they are brilliant. But I also think teams are figuring out what they can do when they get outside of those first 10 or 15 plays. So I'd say they're dressing up.
Are the Eagles contenders or in a costume? 5-2, haven't scored in the first quarter all season.
Oh, I think they're totally contenders. I think their defense is getting better. I think Jalen Hurts, his receiving core is getting healthy. They're contenders.
Cooper DeJean is saving that secondary. Are the Falcons contenders or in a costume? They're 5-3, 4 wins against the NFC South.
Yeah, I think they're totally in a costume. You can't be a contender if you've thrown for 1,000,000 yards and 700 touchdowns against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's the majority of your offensive ranking.
8 touchdowns for Kirk against the Bucs. Are the Steelers contenders or in a costume? They're 6-2, but those 2 losses are the Colts and the Cowboys.
You have to believe they're contenders right now because the rest of that division is behind them. So halfway through the year, if they're in first place, they're contenders.
All right, last one. Broncos contenders are in a costume, 5-3, and have won 5 of their last 6.
Oh, they're totally dressing up. Like they're having a good time, they're enjoying it, but they're dressing up right now. I love the Broncos and I love what they're doing. I love like this sort of relationship between Sean Payton and Bo Nix. I think it's so funny when they're talking about their love language and yelling at each other all the time.
Who believes that? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I think the way he's coaching them is great. I love this team. I want to bet on this team. Like I'm a huge fan, but they're not contenders.
Statistically, Bo Nix has had a better October than the other 2 rookie quarterbacks, which is ridiculous. Insane. Okay, let's get on to our other game picks. This is a big one, Chad. NFC North matchup. I might not be speaking to my brother for the rest of the week. The 2 best teams in the NFC North, Detroit at Green Bay. Green Bay is plus 3.5, which is to be expected. I expect this to be a dog in this one. The Lions are favored by 3.5, which shows some concern for Jordan Love. He went down last game with a groin injury, and I was a little worried it would have been a concussion or something because we didn't really know what happened. But he is fine, and I think he'll play, thankfully. Although Malik Willis might give us a better... He gives me less of a heart attack every game, I'll say that. As a pro gambler, Chad, though, would you call this an offensive line for Green Bay and Detroit?
No, I think it's exactly the line it should be. The only thing offensive about it is if you want to take the Lions, because I would bet the Packers here. In fact, right before we came on the air, I did bet the Packers at plus 3.5, partially because Jordan Love, the MRI came back negative on his groin injury. So even though they're saying he's day-to-day, you can expect him to play. Even if it's Malik Willis, I would do it. Matt LaFleur has proven himself to be a genius of a head coach. And the way he can scheme guys open and what he has done to turn Malik Willis from a guy who is basically going to be on the street into a guy who is winning games, not just managing games. If you saw against the Jags, he only had 56 yards passing. 51 of those 56 yards came on one play that put the Packers in position to win the game. And so he has been brilliant in the way he's managed his team. Huge fan of the Packers in this spot. In betting, you want to buy low, you want to sell high. You're not going to get higher than the Lions on the streak they're on, coming off a 52-point game, going on the road, playing what everyone believes to be either an injured number 1 quarterback or a backup quarterback. The Lions do not cover when they're on the road playing outside. Give me the Packers plus 3.5.
Here's the concern, Chad. Are you mushing the Packers like you did the Bears, though?
Totally.
I don't know
totally
if I should
possible.
side with you now because I don't. You give me anxiety.
Listen, you know what? As one of your patients, I would say you're sending me into a dark place, and it feels counterintuitive for the help you've given me so far. But I don't think it's an entirely inappropriate response by you.
Okay, good. This is a client-patient privilege situation here. Yeah. Is there anyone who would be favored against the Lions in the NFL right now on neutral field? I mean, the Lions are the best team in the NFC right now?
I think the Chiefs would still be favored. Like because part of this is not just about, the skill set, but it's what would the public, the average Joes, what would they bet on? So bookmakers would definitely make the Chiefs the favorites on a neutral field, but I don't think there's anybody else that the Lions would be underdogs to at this point.
In terms of Jared Goff, he had I think you mentioned it. He had 50, it was net 55 passing yards, 52 points they scored. So is he the smart bet for MVP, or do we just have to wait on that a little bit?
This is crazy because in the very extensive pre-interview that I did with your producers, because this is a very high-class show, I did not even bring up the fact that I bet on Jared Goff to win MVP 2 weeks ago when he was at 17-1. He started a game 12 for 12 against the Vikings in a game they came back and won. And I'm like, this is crazy. He is in the midst of a run where he's basically completed 30 of 30 passes. I bet him at 70-1. After that game, he was at 8-1. Right now, the odds, if you look at him, it's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff. I think there's tremendous value on Jared Goff at 8-1 to win MVP. Because what's going to happen is his team is going to end up having the best record in the NFC. I think he will continue to have a multitude of touchdowns. Even though he only had 85 yards passing, he had 3 touchdowns last week. So, yeah, I love Jared Goff.
Wild. Talking about Detroit this way is just weird for me growing up in Detroit. It's great for my brother, bad for me. Okay, so we are both taking Green Bay, right? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, we are both taking Green Bay.
I'm a little worried about that, but that's okay. Okay. Speaking of Kansas City, Tampa Bay, we just talked about the Bucs a little bit ago. The Bucs are at Kansas City, and Kansas City's 8.5. That seems like a lot. Mahomes and Baker met for the first time back in college when they combined for the most yards in a game ever. If you guys remember those days. Baker walked away with the dub that day. Mahomes hasn't lost to him since. He is 3-0 against Baker. The line for this one, like I said, Kansas City minus 8.5. Thoughts on the game, Chad? Is fading the Chiefs a big favorite, first of all? And the most obvious bet of every week.
You want to take the Bucs here. That is sort of the right side to take. Like this year, underdogs of 7 points or more are 9-11 straight up. Forget about against the spread. Like they're just winning these games outright. And Patrick Mahomes, as a favorite of 3 points or more, which happens often, is actually under 500. He's about 45% against the spread as a favorite when the number gets higher. Obviously, because it's Patrick Mahomes, that's a little bit skewed because the number's always higher because of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. What's challenging here is you want to look at the Bucs from last week and see how well Baker Mayfield did when he didn't have Mike Evans and didn't have Chris Godwin, and he was rolling the ball on screens to his running backs and getting Kate out and open. And the challenge with that is you forget that the Falcons defense is terrible.
Yeah.
They cannot get any pressure, right? And so the Chiefs defense gets a ton of pressure, and their defensive backs are great. And they're, so I worry that we're setting ourselves up for a failure here. So I am probably not going to be aggressive on this game. I'll take a little taste, tiny little taste of the Bucs, but it's not going to be a big bet for me.
The only concern of mine is that Todd Bowles' defense sucks. But the Bucs are giving up 386 yards a game. That's ridiculous. Todd, figure it out.
Well, you're always waiting for that, for the moment when Patrick Mahomes gets healthy in a game, right? And sort of finds his way. And,
what happened to being the explosive quarterback that he was? We're kind of lost that, and all the interceptions, which is typical of him. But he still wins games. That's what it comes down to. He is a quarterback that will make those game-clinching plays in the fourth quarter, and that's a little scary. All right, so if you had to pick, who are you taking?
I'll take the Bucs.
I think I'm going to take the Bucs to cover as well. Coming up, you guys, we had some good game picks, but there is another game that is the most offensive game of the week, and I'm sorry we have to talk about it right here on the Offensive Line. Welcome back, you guys. Speaking of Halloween this week, we got 2 masters of disguise at quarterback. Kirk is dressing up as someone who looks like he actually lives in Atlanta, and Dak is dressing up as an NFL quarterback. It's a wild time here in the NFL. The line for Dallas at Atlanta is minus 2.5. Surprisingly, this is not my most offensive game of the week. Dallas' season, it might be over, Chad. It might be over, and it's week 9. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is, you had a great line in the intro about Dallas missing the playoffs, and it feels that way. This line also feels a little bit trappy to me. Like you want to be able to take the Cowboys because the Falcons have won so many games in such a lucky fashion. And in 3 of their games this year that they've won, the opponent had like a 90% chance to win the game with less than 2 minutes left. In one of the games against the Saints, they had a 90% chance to win with 30 seconds left. So the Falcons have gotten really, really lucky this year. We talked about they can't get any pressure at all on the quarterback, which is good because Dak Prescott is basically a mall Santa at this point. He just sits there and he doesn't move, right? And so you know that you're going to be able to fluster him if he has to move out of the pocket. We saw how terrible that was for him in that game against the Niners. The Cowboys need this game desperately. If they have any chance to salvage something, it's a bad spot for the Falcons. I want to take the Cowboys. I know you're going to ask me who I am taking, and I don't want to give you an answer. But if I have to, I'll stop vamping and I'll give you the Cowboys.
Okay. I like that comparison, the Dak and the Mall Santa. Ironically, they both only work like once a year too. So I think
that was good.
I think I'm gonna take Atlanta.
I want to take Atlanta too. Can I take Atlanta with you?
Yes, you can. Yes, let's ride.
Everything about this. I know the Cowboys are going to be the right side here, but I don't want to bet on them.
No, betting is about fun. It's about betting with your heart. That's why I lose so much money.
Let's have a good time.
Let's
not torture ourselves.
All right. So we're both taking Atlanta. Screw the Cowboys. All right, guys. Oh, man, this is perfect segue from talking about the Dallas Cowboys into the worst game we might have to watch this week. It is time for the offensive line's most offensive game of the week. Chad, what's your philosophy on betting bad teams? Is it good value or not worth it?
Love it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite
thing. It makes
thing.
The game enjoyable because...
Well, last week I had the Raiders, I had the Colts, I had the Browns, I had the Jags. It was a glorious, glorious day.
All right. Well, since the Bears, is it Bears-Panthers, right, in Germany? Or no, Giants-Panthers in Germany next week. That probably will be the worst game maybe of the season. This game, however, it has the potential to be really bad. The Chargers at Cleveland. Cleveland is +2. So, Jameis's hype-up speeches, are they so effective that they are going to affect the betting markets? Because people have bought into Jameis Winston. And I mean, I'm on board. I love Jameis. I think he's hilarious. But people tend to forget the Jameis that we all know and love. It's a little AR-like. It's a little Anthony Richardson. Some throws, you're like, what were we thinking? And some are beautiful. So do you think that will affect the betting markets for this game?
Well, what's interesting is so far, Jameis and the joy that he brings people has affected the betting markets in a positive way. Because this line was 3.5. The Chargers were favored by 3.5. And now it's come down to 2. I like that move because I want to bet on the Chargers. Because even though I was on the Browns last week and you said you had the Browns money line last week, good for us, yay. I also remember Jameis fumbling the ball late in the first half with a minute left and his team up 6-3 and the Ravens then scoring right after that, going up 10-6. I also remember Jameis throwing the ball perfectly to Kyle Hamilton, and unfortunately Kyle Hamilton plays for the Ravens and Kyle Hamilton dropped it, which would have ended the Browns' chance to win that game. And I'm thinking about how the Ravens have been horrible defensively in the second half, and the Chargers are just a competent, consistent team. I feel like I know what I'm getting. I feel like I know who they are. They won't make the same mistakes, so I kind of like the Chargers here right now.
Okay, interesting. Also, Jameis threw to like his top receiver, Eddie Jackson, 4 times. I think he had 4 different drops. That should have been 4 different picks. Okay, Chargers. It's Jim Harbaugh. I hate Jim Harbaugh, but that's just bias in me. What the Chargers are doing, I mean, they have Greg Roman, so we knew Justin Herbert was not going to be utilized maybe to his full potential. Is what they're doing to Justin the most offensive thing the Chargers could do? Are they just not? Poor Justin. Finally has an adequate coach, and this happens.
I feel like he's got a great arm, but I also feel like he's probably thrilled. Like, he doesn't have any receivers, and the coach he had for the past 2 years was putting him in a bad spot every time we had to throw for 50 times a game. None of it felt strategic. His ankle was busted. Like, give the guy a break. Let him have a good time and just hand the ball off and throw 15 times a game, and Let the offensive line and defensive line do their work.
Okay. I can't take Cleveland 2 times in a row, I don't think. I think I'm going to take LA.
And there's that too.
Yeah.
Don't take Cleveland
I can't.
twice in a row.
That was so lucky. That was
By the
so
way,
lucky.
That would be offensive.
That would be offensive. Now, see, this is the whole moral of the show. Everything that is offensive. Speaking of, Chad, that's a great introduction into our next topic. This is one of my favorite segments on the show because as if we didn't do enough ranting and psychological welfare already, we are going to do this topic called no offense. So all you have to do, you can rant about whatever bothers you. You just have to start it by saying no offense because everyone knows when you start a sentence with no offense, you're not going to be offensive. So I will start. Chad, you can add your own. You can play off of mine, whatever you want to do. No offense, but National Tight End Day is absolutely ridiculous, okay? I get the tight ends had an insane day. It was like the most receptions, most touchdowns they've had all season. I don't need it. You know what this feels like to me? This feels like Valentine's Day, where it's just a ploy to get people talking about stupid things like love, okay? Yes, I'm heartbroken, but no, this is beside the point. National Tight Ends Day, I probably heard that word 500 million times on every broadcast of every game that we watched. It's a little overdone. We appreciate tight ends. I appreciate tight ends, but I don't need to hear it 5 million times. That is my rant of the day. Chad?
I like it because I feel like these things, they just become so kitschy. Yeah. And like everyone's in on the joke and it's so funny and silly. Like I'm over it. I'm over National Tight Ends Day.
Yep. Me too.
No offense, Baltimore Ravens. You cannot be a Super Bowl contender. You know why? Because your defense is, and I hate to say this, nobody says this about the Baltimore Ravens. Your defense is trash.
Oh.
Your defense is trash against the pass. Your defense is trash in the second half. Your defense is trash when it comes to making adjustments. Everyone watching these games can see that you guys are not going to succeed in the playoffs against teams that are actually good, against Josh Allen, against Patrick Mahomes, unless you can figure out how to not give up the most points in the NFL in the second half this year, other than the Tennessee Titans. And they only have more points given up because they gave up 52 points to the Detroit Lions this past weekend. So no offense, Ravens. Get your act together.
Brutal.
Otherwise, no one's going to be talking about you later in the year.
That's a good one. That's a great one. I think that gets severely overlooked too because we always talk about Lamar and now Derrick Henry and their offense.
Yeah, you talk about Lamar and
you
talk about the rushing game and you talk about the rush defense.
Yeah.
And every single week on defense against the pass, they look confused.
Baltimore, Super Bowl. I would love Lamar to win a Super Bowl, by the way, too. He's got the MVPs. Get him a Super Bowl. Then we can rank our quarterbacks a little bit more realistically and not have to constantly be like Josh Allen, Lamar. Just give me a solid number 2. Give me a Super Bowl.
I'm a huge fan of Lamar.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
I'd like him to win. I root for him. I think he's smart. I think he's a great athlete. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's changed his game. All those things.
Yeah.
So I'm rooting for him too.
All right. You got 2 over here, Lamar. Got a Bears fan and a Packers fan. I don't know what that's worth, but I wanted Ravens Lions Super Bowl last year. I thought that would have been great. Just whatever gets the Chiefs out of there. Okay, to recap our picks, Chad, I think we agreed on quite a few, which is could either be a good or a bad thing. I'm not sure yet.
Bad news for you, my friend.
Bad. Great. Okay, so the ones we agreed on were Green Bay plus 3.5 versus Detroit. We took Tampa Bay plus 8.5 at Kansas City and Atlanta minus 2.5 versus Dallas, which you copied me on that one. So if we lose that one, that's on me. And then we took the Chargers minus 2 at Cleveland. The different one, which is pretty obvious here, you took Chicago plus 1 at Arizona, and I took the Cardinals. Money line versus Chicago. So we'll see how that plays out. There might be some bias involved in that. I don't think I've ever bet on
that
the
is
Chicago
an
Bears.
Entirely professional, well thought out,
no
deeply
bias whatsoever.
Detailed analysis point of view. That's
nothing at all.
Nothing to do with pain, agony, and want.
I didn't fall asleep the other night watching the Hail Mary over and over and over again. I definitely didn't do that. We are here for you. If you ever need a therapy session again, you know where to find us. We will. Yeah. We will work it out together.
Stick me in the back with a shiv and remind me how terrible things are.
Just until the Bears play the Packers. Then all bets are off. I am no longer your therapist. There's no privileges. We're just never speaking again.
Just hatred.
Just hatred. Okay, Chad, thanks for joining us today. Tell us one more time about the favorites and where people can find you.
Everyone should go download the favorites. I do it with my co-host Simon Hunter, professional bettor. Download it from wherever you get your pods, Spotify, Apple, etc., etc.
Perfect. For some, I'm sure some great Bears talk, you guys. Oh, I just love it. I absolutely love it. I'll have to listen. I'll have to listen in for the Cardinals game to see which bet hits. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
That's it for this week on The Offensive Line, guys. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch our full podcast episodes on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I'll see you guys next week. And as always, Des didn't catch it.